Welcome to the CanStutter Canadian Stuttering Association podcast. Hi everyone, my name's Lisa Wilder. I'm on the board of directors of the CanStutter Canadian Stuttering Association. And this is our second podcast of this year. And I have with me today Greg O'Grady. Now I should say that Greg and I go way back. We met almost 20 years ago when Greg lived in Toronto. He has since moved back to his home province of Newfoundland, Labrador, where he lives in St. John's. And this summer, I know he's been working with him and others have been working with CanStutter to plan our conference, which is happening in August in St. John's. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know we're all looking forward to the conference that's coming up in August. There's more information about this conference on our website, stutter.ca, and you can register. There's still time to get the early bird pricing, and for the hotel accommodations as well are available. Greg, I'd like to, I know over the years since I've known you, which is a long time, you've always been volunteering to help. I know you've done a lot to raise money for people who stutter to get therapy, and you founded the walk run marathon to raise money. That was many years ago, and it was in Toronto. And then when you moved back east, you kept it up there for a while. Can you talk a bit about what this volunteer work you've been doing, what that's meant to you?
Okay, Lisa. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. The thanks go to you, and I feel honored to be your second guest. So, thanks again, Lisa. It's amazing how time flies. 20 years since you and I met, and I remember when we met. That was when I attended one of the earlier conferences, the CSA conferences, and I can't remember what it's called. But anyhow, I introduced the idea about developing a first Toastmasters club for people who stutter. And then you jumped on the bandwagon, and 20 years later, here we are. So, Lisa, when to shed some light on your first question, the reason why I is so passionate about volunteering is my way of paying it forward by paying it back. We're paying it back, paying it forward. And because I remember for decades what I went through as a person who stuttered with a severe stuttering problem, what I went through emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually, that, well, whatever I can do to help somebody else that may be experiencing similar issues or challenges, at least I have helped. And to be honest, I view it as an opportunity to pay it forward, because whenever I listen to others' lived experiences about people about stuttering, I learn as well. Because the older I'm getting, the more that I listen to people who stutter, their families, speech language pathologists, researchers, the more that I'm realizing, the less I know about stuttering.
Well, it
Um,
can be a real a real journey of self acceptance and self awareness. I think for people who stutter to to work that out. It can be a lifetime. And I know you've written a lot of, you've written a lot about it. You've written articles for our website, and you've written a biographical book. Can you talk a bit about what writing has, how writing has helped, how, what writing means to you?
well, it's a form. It's another form of self care for Greg O'Grady. And I remember when I first wrote the two articles for the CSA, and so I feel that that was the beginning of uh, self discovery, I guess, to find out who Greg O'Grady is. And I find that I lived so many years as a covert stuttering, trying to mask my stuttering, that I've never really had a sense of autisticity, and never had a sense of developing a true, authentic self identity. And I found that I remember the year after I retired and moved back to Newfoundland, I presented at the Newfoundland Labrador speech language pathologist and audiologist conference. And so they just wanted to hear my story. And I was surprised, Lisa, because I thought, well, that's no problem. I've shared my story before. And I'm not too sure what happened to me, but yeah, shortly after I started, I actually became very emotional. And so that triggered something in me saying that, Greg, you have unfinished business to do. And that's when I started to seriously delve into stuttering. And it's interesting that the more that I write about stuttering, I published my book, Surviving Stuttering: A White-Knuckle Roller Coaster Ride, on Amazon Canada. And that took me about, to be honest with you, it's about 3 years to write. And but I lost so many sleepless nights and a lot of tears, but it was a lifeline, because it helped me understand what happened in my life and why it happened because of stuttering. But so it was quite an accomplishment for me. But now I find that since I've finished the book, it's left me with more unanswered questions.
Well, I remember in one of your of the articles you wrote, you said that when you were growing up, when you were a boy, there wasn't really any addressing of your stuttering. People didn't even really have a word for it, and that must have been very odd to not have anything defined around it, and not to be different, and not have it be acknowledged, or not having it being addressed in any way. Well, what was your childhood like?
Well, it was a very that's a very good point, because back then, we're going back decades ago, in Harbor Grace, Newfoundland. It's a small rural community, but it's interesting because my father stuttered, and I have four other brothers that stutter as well. And but no one ever talked about it. It was almost like it was accepted, you know? But we really didn't even talk about each other having a speech impediments. And so with me, because I started to become a covert stutterer when I was about first when I realized I had difficult talking. That was in about grade 3 or 4, and I realized that I had trouble talking. I wasn't like other kids. And I remember back then that they used to do a roll call. They used to look at each and every student and ask us to introduce ourselves. And we all know that the panic and feel.
Yes.
I knew that I had trouble with Gregory, so I always introduced myself as Joe, because Joe was easier to say. So I mean, I don't remember much from my childhood. All I remember is I appeared to be very quiet and very shy. I was in the shadows, okay? And my parents didn't talk about it. No one talked about it in high school either. But I only realized the severity of my stutter when I went to the airport to buy a ticket to move to Ottawa at the time, and I could not say a word. So that's how severe my stuttering was, and that's how severe that I wasn't aware. That's how well I hid it. So back then, there was much talk discussed about, which is sadly because I think like any other person who stutters, a child that stutters, they need the support. They need to.
What advice would you have for parents of children who stutter? I find a lot of parents, they might take their child to speech therapy, but they don't really know how to deal with it on a personal level or how to relate to it. What would you say to a mother or father who had a child who stuttered?
Well, the most important thing, is that children need love, but they also need opportunities to build confidence, because confidence is so important because it helps prepare you for life, and it really is a definite interrelationship between the parents and the child. And we often take for granted that as a person who stutters, that you know, we're the only ones that suffers, but it's the parents as well. Stuttering and it is on our minds. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, not painting everybody with the same paintbrush, but stuttering is on our minds. Sometimes it's 24/7, and then our parents' minds as well. So it's important that the parents talk to the child. The parents utilize every opportunity to learn about stuttering, and that means to go to support groups, family support groups, getting involved with the organizations like the Canadian Stuttering Association, and but just to bring it to the forefront and talk about it. And I think the more that we push it under the parents and not talk about it, the child feels it. The child feels that there's something wrong with me. But the sad part that I'm learning as well, Lisa, that not all parents have the financial resources to obtain speech therapy.
Yes.
And because I'm talking about Newfoundland now, because the average employee pays $500 towards speech therapy. Now, you and I both know when the speech therapy session averages from 160 to 185, it's very limited. So, I mean, that places a lot of challenges on the parents. So I think the most important thing is that parents can acknowledge it, work with the child, and we all know, and this is a journey as well. It's okay to stutter. It's okay to stutter, and the parents need support as well, and they need to connect with the support groups.
But that's a good advice there. Getting back to the conference, what role do you think the conferences have for people who stutter and for families where one of the kids stutters? How can attending a conference help?
Well, I feel it can be a lifeline for everybody that attends these conferences. SLP, speech language pathologists, parents, children, adolescents, adults, and seniors, healthcare professionals. It's an opportunity to really sort of become more aware of stuttering, to be educated, as well as to, I love our theme this year, At Home with Stuttering. And I love it because it really sort of hits home, because I've been thinking about it, that if you're a teacher in a school struggling with a student, trying to help a student who stutters, now how can the teacher help a student who stutters when they're not at home with stuttering themselves, if they don't even know, if they're not familiar? Also, how can a child understand stuttering when they're not at home with stuttering? So, so it's an opportunity for everybody to come together, to listen and learn, to live it, to understand, listen to our lived experiences. And I think it can be a lifeline for a lot of people, a lot. So I think these conferences are invaluable resources.
Now you also run self-help groups, self-help group in St. John's, and I know that that CanStutter, we have self-help groups across Canada. Some are online and some are in person. But how does self-help groups, obviously, are more intimate, less people, maybe there's more of a chance to talk honestly with each other. How are the self-help groups in St. John's? How are they doing, and how do they help someone who stutters?
Well, this is another opportunity as well, Lisa, to find support, to come and listen to each other's lived experiences, ask questions, to laugh, to cry. We call our support group here in Newfoundland the kitchen party. Because it is a play on the Newfoundland. It's a welcoming space, because Newfoundland is a very welcoming and hospitable people. So we try to make it less formal and more inviting. And it's a virtual and an in-person group, but it's another lifeline for people who feel comfortable attending, because not everybody is comfortable sharing in support group.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
St. John's is a very, they're very different parts of Canada, very different attitudes. And do you find that, having lived in Toronto and St. John's, what would you say is the differences of how people maybe react to stuttering? What are the different kind of mindsets in these, or are they pretty much the same?
To be honest with you, Lisa, I was spoiled. I was so blessed and so spoiled in being involved in the Speech and Stuttering Institute in Toronto, because it's like a cocoon sort of thing. I felt safe. When I walked into the Speech and Stuttering Institute, for many minutes, I felt at home. This is my home. And I was accepted. And, I could stutter. I found my people, in other words, But in terms of I think St. John's, Newfoundland, to be honest with you, when I retired and moved back to Newfoundland, I did some investigating as to what supports were available for people who stutter. And I was surprised, to be honest with you, Lisa. I was surprised that there was hardly nothing. We have speech language pathologists, But in terms of anything like similar to the speech and stuttering, there's nothing at all. And so the more that, the more that, when all said and done, I feel that the stuttering community in Newfoundland is a have-not forgotten and boisterous community. And so, I mean, there's such a need, and there's just a need for support for the stuttering community. And but having the support groups, as well as the conferences, I mean, the Newfoundland Labrador Stuttering Association is so blessed to be partnering with the CSA on this endeavor, because it's going to put the stuttering on the lens of government on Newfoundland in general. It's a shared responsibility, but so every opportunity for people started to take advantage, like online conferences. There's so much wealth of knowledge, experience, but it's a risk, but it's necessary. It's a quality of life issue, really, for us.
Well, I think that it is exciting to be having the conference in a different part of Canada, and to be getting out of central Canada and going to the coast, and to a whole kind of a new audience. But what would you say to people who are thinking about making a trip out there to St. John's for the conference? What do they have to look forward to?
Well, those people who have not experienced our province, Newfoundland is a beautiful, beautiful province. It really can take your breath away with the scenery, the oceans, and then the fresh air. First of all, fresh air is wonderful. And so it's a good opportunity to get away from the rat race sort of thing. And like in terms of, there's a lot of sites and everything, and it's a good time to come, because in August we have a pedestrian mall that's on Water Street. They closed that down, so it's a walking mall area, a pedestrian mall. There's a lot of sightseeing, but it's a great opportunity to meet other people, and it's a very relaxed environment. And based on the planning at the moment, we've got a lot of interesting speakers lined up, and it's an excellent opportunity to learn more about stuttering.
Yes, well, it definitely sounds wonderful. I can't wait to arrive there in August, and of course we're getting there a bit earlier and tying it in with a nice vacation too. So
Oh, excellent! Good to hear.
that'll be wonderful. So anyway, Greg, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this second podcast. And I can't wait in August, I'll be able to say hello to you in person. I know we haven't seen each other in a long time, so that will be wonderful. So thanks again, and maybe we'll be doing another podcast down the road.
Well, I think it's time for you to come back for some sort of law conversation.
Right.
On our podcast. It's been too long, but anyhow, Lisa, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, and this has been a great opportunity.
Thank you.